So this is very scary. Are enough people on our planet worried about it?
Well, there are many people worried, but point is, are enough powerful people worried? So let's talk about some powerful people such as the billionaires on our planet. One of the billionaires on our planet, who is an unusual, innovative mind, that is Mr. Elon Musk. He is currently spending, his company is spending hundreds of millions of dollars in journeying to Mars. So it's a private venture, journeying to Mars. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars, and he's investing that money. And he says he is investing all that money because he doesn't trust that the earth will survive. He doesn't trust earthly wisdom that we as a species on planet Earth will survive. So he wants to journey to Mars so that eventually he can create human settlements in Mars, so that if the foolish humans, they end up destroying planet Earth, which of course Musk says is his favorite planet in the world, but if this planet is destroyed, there will be human settlements somewhere else, potentially in Mars, that will survive. So during the course of many interviews, people have said, why are you going to Mars? And he said, this is the reason. I think in our stupidity, we will destroy our planet. So let's have a human settlement somewhere else, at least on one other planet, possibly on two other planets. So, of course, I think we need to appreciate Elon Musk for not being driven by profit alone. Now, it's a question whether his fears are legitimate. Other billionaires don't think it's legitimate. Bill Gates, for example, he feels that this is a waste of billions of dollars to journey all the way to Mars. Musk should be spending his money on the planet itself. So Bill Gates says that why discover water on Mars? You should try to go to dry areas on Earth and discover water there. You should invest in malaria. You should invest in controlling diseases which affect our human beings. And he feels that Musk is worried unnecessarily, but many people, they don't feel Musk is worried unnecessarily. Warren Buffett, incidentally, supports Bill Gates. He says he was asked, would he go to Mars? Bill Gates was asked, would he go to Mars if it became possibly technically feasible tomorrow? And they both said, no, we would not. Warren Buffett said, if I cross the lake across my house, that's enough for me. Going to Mars, forget it. But it's a concerning thing, and people are worried. Elon Musk, by the way, is not alone. The American astrophysicist Carl Sagan, he said many years, he said we should become a 2 planetary species or a 3 planetary species because we cannot trust that people on our planet will not have the wisdom to destroy ourselves, to self-destruct. So, yes, ordinary people are worried, and powerful people are also worried.
Okay, so you spoke about powerful billionaires. What about powerful politicians?
Yes, Ananya, the politicians are, after all, more important than billionaires for the safety of our planet. In 2009, President Barack Obama was given the Nobel Prize. The Americans were actually embarrassed that Obama got the Nobel Prize because he had just taken office, and 6 months later, or less than a year later, they gave him the Nobel Prize. So what had he done to deserve it? Obama accepted the Nobel Prize, but during his speech, his acceptance speech, he said, validly, he said very often the Nobel Prize is given in anticipation, or is given with the hope that the person to whom it is being given will do things to deserve the Nobel Prize. So perhaps people were hopeful that Obama would do something to make our planet a safer place, and they gave him the Nobel Prize. Did Obama live up to those expectations? Unfortunately not. He was pulled into the real politics of American and global politics. He could not make our planet a safer place, at least as far as the nuclear issue is concerned. In fact, one of the secretaries to the Nobel Prize Committee, the committee which awards the Nobel Prize, he has published an account of those years he spent with the committee. And he has said the committee was profoundly, deeply disappointed with Obama. That the Nobel Prize was given to him, but he did not subsequently do things which people would have said, yes, our hope in this man was justified. So that was a disappointment. But what about other powerful politicians? I mean, you have Mr. Donald Trump telling Kim Jong that my red button is bigger than yours. It's like one child boasting that my toy car is better than yours, or one rich man telling another that my Mercedes is better than your Chrysler or your Tesla. It's like competing with these kind of things. So we seem to be living on a planet with small, immature minds holding powerful positions, who don't really care very much about the 7.5 billion people on this planet, how to save their lives, how to make sure our planet does not self-destruct. So are politicians worried? I would not say they are doing anything to make us feel that they are really worried, at least the powerful politicians. Sad to say.
So Rajesh, why did you decide to write a play and not a novel?
When I looked around Ananya, I found that there have been hundreds of films, hundreds of novels written on the nuclear issue, but there's relatively little theatre. And theatre, actually, plays have a certain immediacy to them. If you're reading through a novel, there's lots of description of flora, of fauna, you sort of digress from the issue, there's a lots of description of thoughts, whereas the play is more immediate. And I didn't find many plays, many thoughtful plays especially. There is a lot of cinema, but most of the cinema, unfortunately, even coming from Hollywood, is mindless. So it's actually just creating excitement for the viewers. The earliest movie that I can think of was movie 1964, Goldfinger. So Goldfinger has got hold of a nuclear dirty bomb, and he's threatening the American government that unless you give me this and that, I'm going to explode this nuclear bomb. And there have been series of films after that. I think Hollywood, they just churn out endlessly a spate of disaster films. But most of them are mindless. Many of them have a good guy who somehow saves the planet. The planet is on the verge of nuclear destruction. So you have audiences apparently sitting in cinema halls who are enjoying all this possibility of annihilation. It's giving them excitement. And you just have one or two people, a boy and a girl, or a man and a woman who are spies, who are... so on the one hand, cinema is intergalactic. On the other hand, it is very narrowly nationalistic with an evil villain like Germany, Russia conventionally. The cinema hasn't really played a very important role in terms of making people aware of the terrifying threat that this nuclear weapons pose to us. So I'm hoping that a play like this can help to bridge the gap, that there has been little theatre on this, and that's really the idea. We have lots of cinema even which speaks of the earth being destroyed. So you have another civilization hovering over the earth which is held into place by some system, and the earth has been destroyed. So all these kind of things are there, but I don't think they are there to make people really worried about what can potentially happen. They seem to exist just to titillate and to excite people and make them, fearful. It's like the ghost who might come or the vampire story. They are not talking about what can really happen. The terrible truth about our weapons industry, about how there is so much potential carnage which can be unleashed through a few stupid actions.
Can you tell us about any thoughtful novel that you read on the subject of nuclear war or nuclear holocaust?
I read a novel not long ago by the American author Gore Vidal, At the moment I can't remember the title, but it was not involving nuclear destruction but biological destruction. So the theme in this novel is that a group of biological terrorists, they get hold of a bug which can kill all human beings. So there's lots of things which happen, and they have these bugs which they drop. Different aircraft, they go over the planet and they drop this deadly bug. The bug can kill human beings and potentially destroy all human life. And then I reach the second last chapter of the book, and the terrorists succeed. All human life is destroyed. But this bug can only destroy human life, not animal life, not plant life, other things. So I reached the end, and then I thought, okay, that's the end. The planet is destroyed. Human life is destroyed. And then I saw there's another chapter left. I said, what remains now? At the time, I thought. And the last chapter is actually good news, because human beings are destroyed, the forests start to grow again, the air starts to clean itself, global warming comes to an end, the almost extinct species, they start to repopulate, the earth, the planet Earth starts to sing and dance. Thank God we've got rid of this terrible human being. So actually the novel is a happy ending. It's not a sad ending. Human beings are finished, but they are part of the problem, it would seem. The planet can do very well without them. So it's actually a happy ending, in an ironic sense, of course, but it's a happy ending because the planet is resuscitated. Once again, you have the seasons, you have the birds flying across the sky, you have, the planet itself is rejoicing. So I think that was very impactful, and I really enjoyed it. Someone could say, in fact, this is one of the themes which is discussed by the aliens. They say that maybe we should create a nuclear explosion somewhere on the planet to prevent a small-scale nuclear explosion, to get the human beings worried. Because after Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened, human beings did get worried. So maybe a small nuclear accident, a small nuclear war, will get them to start decommissioning the nuclear weapons. Otherwise we are threatened with destruction of the planet. So this is conversations happening between the aliens, on how to save the planet. And I won't say that this kind of conversation is completely stupid, because unfortunately human beings, we don't seem to be wise enough to know what is good for us. And I do hope that some sense prevails and we do something about this terrible nuclear issue which is threatening us.
So Rajesh, in the play you also talk about artificial intelligence. Can you tell us what is the use of artificial intelligence in the book, and how is it related to nuclear matricide?
Vladimir Putin said not long ago that the country which controls artificial intelligence in the future is the country which will control the world, which will rule the world. Elon Musk is also very worried about artificial intelligence. He says it's potentially a very dangerous thing. It can be even more dangerous than nuclear weapons. What does he mean? After all, artificial intelligence itself does not kill people, but its deployment can be fatal. So one of the scenes in the play is based in Moscow, where there's a Russian military instructor speaking to a group of cadets, and he's telling them about artificial intelligence. So he starts with the chess game. Historically, human beings were defeating computers for a long time in a game of chess, till finally, many decades ago, there was a computer called Deep Blue who defeated a Russian grandmaster. Then people woke up, they said, wow, that means a machine can defeat human beings. So chess is relatively a simple game, but there is a game of military strategy called Go, which has existed for thousands of years. And not so many years ago, the world champion of this game was also defeated by a machine. So machines can defeat human beings in matters of military strategy. So in future wars, human beings will depend on artificial intelligence to help them win wars. A machine will be telling us, do this, do that, because human beings are very slow to react. They don't have the brain power to go into all the permutations and combinations. A machine empowered with artificial intelligence is going to be directing the future battles in the world. This is potentially a very scary phenomenon. But Elon Musk feels we should really be worried about it. There should be a global regime to monitor and to regulate the use of artificial intelligence. Of course, there are other people who use artificial intelligence, other billionaires like the Facebook billionaire Mr. Zuckerberg. And Mr. Zuckerberg feels that Musk's fears are exaggerated. Artificial intelligence is very important. I mean, when I published this play, it went through the artificial intelligence system within Amazon. There was no human interaction. You know, it just goes through artificial intelligence and then it gets published. And people talk about how Amazon is one of the richest companies in the world, but relatively to its wealth, it employs very few people. The human beings working for Amazon are not so many because it employs a lot of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is very important also for the future of warfare, including nuclear warfare, and this is discussed in one of the important scenes in the book. But I won't tell you more about it. I won't tell you if the planet will survive in the play. If you see the cover, it's a beautiful cover which has been designed by Ms. Sharma. A very nice cover, although it's horrific because it shows our planet is burning. And but it doesn't mean that that's how the story ends, how the play ends. So I won't tell you about the ending. You'll have to read the play or watch it once it's staged to learn how the play eventually, how the story unfolds. But yes, there are important scenes relating to artificial intelligence, to aliens, to the question of aliens landing on our planet, potentially colonizing the planet. There's lots of things. I think two of the reviewers told me that they read the play at a stretch. Normally plays are not easy to read, but they just read it at a stretch. So I'm hoping it will be similarly engrossing for other readers and viewers.
So that was it for today. We learned about nuclear wars, nuclear holocaust, and then importantly, nuclear matricide. Mr. Rajesh, thank you for being here with us today again.
Thanks, Ananya. It's a pleasure to be with you and your team also once again to discuss one of the most important issues pressing upon us. Somebody once asked me, why are you working on this play on the nuclear issue? Hasn't enough been written on it already? And I said, well, you know, the issue is so important that perhaps it could be argued that you can never write enough on it. And especially since there is very little theatre. Of Mr. Vidal's book, I mentioned that the planet was celebrating that the human beings are finally destroyed and the planet can breathe again. You know, and I think it's an important message. We should not take a very homocentric view of the situation. After all, the preservation of the planet and the thousands and hundreds and thousands of species which live on the planet is more important than the preservation of the human species alone. There is, among all these thousands of species that live on our planet, there is a snake, you know, which kills itself almost. It's a snake which mistakes its own tail for another animal. So the snake starts to eat its own tail. But somewhere down the line it realizes that it is eating itself, and then it withdraws. So it looks like the human species has become like that snake. We are devouring ourselves. But will we be wise enough like that snake to realize that we are killing ourselves, we are cleaning our planet? We are coming close to that with the spread of this nuclear warheads across the world. And will we be wise? Will we set up a global regime to get rid of these weapons of mass destruction which have proliferated? Will there be a transnational regime which will not only see whether Iran has got nuclear weapons, but which will check whether Russia and US have got nuclear weapons? Will there be the possibility of a decommissioning of nuclear weapons across the planet? Because that seems to be the only hope for us if we are to survive as a species. And I'm hoping that the play will be performed. It's had a good reaction. I think we've spoken enough about it, but we haven't given away the end. There are lots of interesting twists in the play. There are lots of surprises. There's a discussion about artificial intelligence and what it holds for the future of warfare, what it holds for the future of life on the planet. And I hope this discussion will serve to spread awareness on the subject, just like there are many other people who talk about these things. And once the play itself is performed, some young people have come to me with the idea that this play should be staged. It's a very important issue, given the recent Indo-Pak heating up kind of a situation. So I'm hoping that something happens. If nothing else, the play will be read. It can be used in group discussions. And, well, let's hope wisdom dawns.
This is your host Ananya Sharma signing off, and we'll be seeing you soon with yet another episode and yet another book.